On October 18, 1941, such an incident occurred in the hospital. The nurses and orderlies surrounded one violent patient and tried to calm him down and take him to the bed from which he had escaped. He was in a white coat, a small but very strong man with a bandaged head and shoulder. He looked at those around him with confused, angry eyes, panting and still trying to break free and throw himself into the adjoining room from which he had just been led out under his arms. The nurses stroked him on the head, saying affectionate words to him, and the orderlies urged him not to resist. The little man gave in gradually. He no longer objected, but he was still breathing heavily, looking around at everyone in confusion. At last they managed to put him to bed. They gave him a sedative and tried to distract him with jokes. Later it became known what was the matter. A severely wounded German, a downed Nazi pilot, had just been brought to the hospital. He urgently needed a blood transfusion. This pilot, an officer, one of the few captured near Leningrad, could give valuable testimony, and it was necessary to keep him alive at all costs. The only separate small room in the hospital, unoccupied by anyone, was here, next to a large room where dozens of wounded Soviet soldiers were lying. One of the nurses let it slip that a captured German officer had been placed in the next room. Then, the little man, in a fit of hatred, shouted, "Brothers, a German was brought to us, we beat them, and here they are saved." He got up from his bunk, forgetting about his wounds, ran into the ward and rushed to the German to strangle him. The nurses barely had time then. It took a lot of effort to pull away and calm down the wounded soldier, who had gone into a frenzy. Having calmed down, through tears, which now caused acute pain from his wounds, he said, "Let them not put fascist scum together with our people anymore." Now near the ward with the German officer stood a sentry in a white hospital gown. The German pilot himself was lying in a small room with one bed, lying on his back and looking at the ceiling with hot eyes. The feeling of that soldier became clear. There he was, one of those who dropped bombs on the city at night. Gloomily, wolfishly, a narrow-faced, unshaven, skinny young man looked at me. On top of the blanket, thin, nervous fingers with shiny fingernails. The expression on his face was angry and insolent. Today, observing exactly all the requirements of medicine, the doctors gave the wounded German a blood transfusion. After this procedure, the color in the face of the Nazi young man was added. He felt much better, and it was clear that he was not upset about the possible loss of his notorious Aryan purity. I was also told that when he was being taken to the hospital, he half-consciously uttered a few phrases in Russian. Now he refused to know Russian, but explained that he spoke English and French. I chose French for the conversation and asked, "Does your physical condition allow you to answer my questions?" A fragment of an anti-aircraft shell had shattered both of this pilot's feet. From the enemy's first answers, I learned that his name is Kurt Obermeier. He is a lieutenant, crew commander of a Junkers 88 bomber. He was born in 1917 in Klagenfurt, in southern Austria, near Italy. His father was a wine merchant. He graduated from an 8th grade gymnasium and entered an infantry military school in 1935. In 1938, he became a lieutenant in the Austrian army and enrolled in a technical school. He was interested in being an officer, and most of all a pilot. As the Germans said, I never thought there would be a war. Then England attacked us and we had to defend ourselves. Defending his Führer, Kurt Obermeier in 1940 went to bomb France. But where exactly he didn't say. It is not a military secret, just not so pleasant to confess that he bombed defenseless, peaceful cities. When asked if he had bombed London, after a little thought, Kurt nodded his head in the affirmative. But he doesn't know exactly where he threw his bombs, because he flew at night and didn't see his bombs hit. He did not say how many times he flew to bomb the city. But he said that for many merits he was awarded the Iron Cross of the First Degree. When asked if he was a member of the Nazi Party, he lowered his eyes and said that he was not involved in politics, but was just defending his state. Protecting it from England, which attacked Germany. But he doesn't know how she attacked. In what place England attacked he can't say there. What Germany was doing and from whom it was defending itself in Czechoslovakia, Greece, Denmark and Poland, the pilot could not answer. But you could see how nervous he was getting. He asked for a glass of water and drank it quickly. When we asked him what Germany was doing in the Soviet Union, he said, we struck the first blow, but we did not attack. We struck because the Soviet Union was pulling divisions to our border. When the war started, we knew that England was in league with Russia. I believe that we have already defeated Russia and there is nothing America can do to help you. I really wish I could fight to the end. When asked if he flew to bomb Leningrad, the German with undisguised anger replied that not yet. Not yet, you know? He didn't have time. When he was bombing the Road of Life across Lake Ladoga, Soviet anti-aircraft gunners hit Kurt Obermeier's Junkers with a precise hit and landed it on the shore of Ladoga. Kurt Obermeier did not survive the war and the first terrible winter. He shared the fate of the inhabitants of besieged Leningrad, dying of wounds, hunger, and exhaustion. The 24-year-old captive bomber crew commander died in hospital on December 31, 1941. According to archival data, from October 1941 to January 1945, 47 prisoners of war died in this hospital, among them 4 Finns, 1 Czech, 2 Poles, 1 Dutchman, 1 Spaniard and 1 Flemish. The remaining 37 were Germans. The Dutch, Spanish and Flemish are representatives of the national legions that also participated in the battles near Leningrad. All young men between the ages of 19 and 35. They are buried in the Piskaryovsky Cemetery of the city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg.